One of the things that I think the team here wrestles with, one version of this, as you know, one of the things I've said frequently, if you're not embarrassed by your first product release, you've released too late. It's partially to emphasize MVP, emphasize time, emphasize learning in terms of where you're going, as opposed to just saying, no, I pull back the thing. A variant that we run into is now that you have hundreds of millions of customers, you're live and you're visible. Embarrassment now comes at a much higher cost, so that gets an attention. There's a similar question when you think about the principles of kind of the lean startup, with also a consistent and delightful user experience. Any insights in terms of how to navigate that?
Well, first of all, I quote you all the time on if you haven't been, you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you waited too long. And I've developed what I consider to be the secret corollary, and I'm actually dying to know if you agree with.
Awesome.
Because I've been going around telling people that you probably would. I get to find out. Because
you're experimenting.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. I'm running this experiment. So here's my experience. The secret corollary is no matter how long you wait, you will be embarrassed by the first version of your product.
Yes.
Because the presupposition of people who say, why don't we slow down, and why don't we do the same thing slower, is if we slow down, get less feedback, and take longer to do it, then that will produce a better outcome for customers. They'll be more delighted. And my question is, where is the evidence for this thesis? That going slower and getting less feedback leads to more delightful, I know we all think that, well, not, obviously not for everybody else, the companies that you work with, whose products you use, wouldn't you wish they would have gotten a little more feedback before they foisted that new version on you and forced you to use it? I won't name any specific names, but you can imagine who I'm talking about. You're like, gee, just, test that with one person, please. But then when it's our thing, we're like, well, I'm going to go in the cave and just figure it all out at the whiteboard, for as long as it takes and come out when it's done. And how often does that actually produce a delightful experience, as a matter of fact? Yet it's deeply intuitive that what we call larger batch sizes as we move from kind of stage to stage of work. So how much work goes from design to implementation to verification to deployment. We have an intuition that the longer those cycles, the better, because we can really be efficient and kind of work out all the details and make quality right. And the problem is, quality is really in the eye of the beholder, which means for a for-profit company, quality is defined by the customer and what they want. So if we are misaligned with the customer about what quality means, then all the extra time we take to polish all the edges and get everything really right is wasted time, because we want to pushing the product away from what the customer actually wants. And I'll give you an example from InView. This drives me crazy as an engineer. So some people have played 3D video games like The Sims, World of Warcraft, pick your favorite video game. There's a lot of technology that goes into suspending disbelief so that when your character moves around a scene in a 3D video game, it feels real. And not to get into it, those who are interested, there's something called inverse kinematics, which is so that when the avatar's feet walk on the floor, the foot actually goes onto the floor and it matches the surface, even though the surface is uneven. Because if the foot goes through the floor, you're all like, ugh, that's like a ghost. That's not an avatar. And a lot of physics to make sure that when I'm sitting at a table with Reed and I go to pick up my coffee, my sleeve doesn't accidentally go through the table. Right? Some of you are familiar with this? So when we first built InView, which is a 3D social network, we didn't have the time and budget really to invest in all that technology. So we came up with a hack, which was when you would be sitting at a scene like this with Reed in our social situation, we would just anchor your avatar to the chair and not let you move around. So no moving around means no inverse kinematics, no physics, no nothing. You're anchored in place. And you'd be shocked to hear that customers would use that product and they would complain that it made them feel claustrophobic, that they're like, we succeeded in the suspension of disbelief, but you're stuck in the chair. You can't move. So the feedback was always customers wanted to move. And we were like, oh God, this is going to mean millions of dollars of research to get all this physics and everything right and whatever. We didn't have that kind of budget. So we're one night, as a lame hack, it was late in the morning, I was feeling a little delirious. I was like, what if we just made it so that when you click to a different place in the scene, we just erased your avatar from the old place and moved you directly to the new place. Okay, so like a jump cut, but the worst possible kind. You're in the middle of moving the cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden you're standing across the room. The suspension of disbelief is ruined. It's actually the camera that has zoom, and the camera's surprised, so it's fly over there, but what's going on? The camera could fly through a wall while doing it. It's we're and so our first impulse was no way, this is going to ruin our brand. The customers are going to hate it, whatever. But we were running out of time basically. So we're well, let's just try it as an experiment and see what happens. And we were so embarrassed by the experiment, we weren't even willing to ask customers what they thought about it. because that would call attention to it. So we just didn't say anything and just were like, we'll see if anybody noticed. And almost the next day, immediately, we started getting this feedback from customers that we couldn't understand. We all of a sudden were rated, our product was more advanced than The Sims. People were using the word advanced to describe our product. And we're like, why? We literally had to bring people into an office and be like, so talk to us about this versus The Sims. They're like, oh, it's so great. In The Sims, when you want to walk around the scene, you have to wait while your avatar gets up out of the chair and walks. In InView, you teleport. Who wouldn't rather teleport to wherever you want to go? And we were like, oh, God, customers are so stupid. How could they think that? And then we're like, wait, we're done. So I tell this story. And the problem with telling stories about mistakes you made, you know this. People are like, what a bunch of idiots. But once you know the answer, everything is obvious. So I'm sure we sound like complete morons. Sorry. We were. It's like, well, why didn't you just do it right in the first place? If we'd known what was right in the first place, yeah, of course we would have done that. The question I have, especially for the engineers in the room, is which version of the product is higher quality? The one with the teleportation or the one with the inverse kinematics? We know which one is more expensive. We know which one has more lines of code. We know which ones we would prefer to work on because it's a more interesting problem. But from the customer's point of view, what's higher quality? I claim the dumb hack is actually higher quality than the super high-tech, beautiful outcome. Now, that's really distressing to those of us who built our professional identity on quality work because we want to be the arbiters of quality. And so the kind of lesson of Lean Startup is not quality doesn't matter, not you should just do things cheap, quick, dumb, crappy. Rather, quality is in the eye of the beholder. So in order to get the only truly accurate path to get to a high quality outcome is simply to test your assumptions along the way and give yourself time to have customers react to what you do so that you can fix the quality problems you didn't even know to be thinking about in the first place.